Hi, everyone. Thanks for an opportunity to be here, and it's truly inspiring to see such a warmly welcoming audience around. What I guess you figured after Katja's talk is that all of us have a chance to live in exciting times. And the reason for that is not only that we have an opportunity, or some of us get an opportunity to go to Mars, and we get to witness that, but also because most of the things that we used to do as children with our parents, most of the processes that we were used to, are not existing anymore, or they have been transformed absolutely radically. If you think of it, listening to the music on your Walkman, or what we used to do in my post-Soviet Russian childhood is recording the music on your phone on like a voice recorder so that you can listen to that afterwards, is what we did, and our children probably would never have to do anymore. Having to be punctual when you arrange a meeting with someone because you actually don't have a chance to text them that you're running late or make kind of an excuse that Uber didn't come or something, that also wasn't there. And so now the process of scheduling, traveling, everything else has been transformed very radically. It is very exciting for us as the users, as customers, but it's also very challenging to keep up with this technology. And it's even more challenging for the companies because most of the business models that worked at that time, they don't work now, and there is very little chance that they would work in the future. If you think of it, the year 2000, which seems to have been, just around the corner, that's the year when Backstreet Boys, when Britney were recording their songs, which we still know by heart, The beginning of the 21st century was the time when there were plenty of powerful players on the market. And since then, up until now, more than half of them, the biggest and the most successful companies, have ceased to exist or failed to keep up with the technological challenge. They had what it takes to win the market. They had what it takes to make the money and get the audience engaged. But then they failed to realize that the whole change of everything, that the new technology is coming, and that was an unfortunate thing to do. So our goal in here, for all of us and for every single company out there on the market, is to anticipate the new technological challenges that are coming. One of my favorite textbook examples is that back in the year 2000 again, in the US, there was a company called Blockbusters, and they were making millions renting out DVDs, which at that point were like, the peak of the technological advantage, as you can imagine. That was the most progressive thing to do. And then one day, there was a guy who walked in to a CEO and offered him to acquire a company which was offering digital streaming services for around $50 million at that point. And the CEO said that, that sounds insane. There are the big desktop computers, and why would somebody want to watch videos or movies on their desktop computers? That just doesn't make any sense. Or like, God forbid, on mobile phones, they're not even created for that. Most of them are still black and white or something. So like, why would somebody do that? No. He sent the guy away. Blockbusters went bust very quickly, and the company which was offering those streaming services is Netflix, and now it's valued at around $100 billion US, which is just one of a million of textbooks examples of how important it is to realize that the opportunity is out there. Now, what we witnessed over the last couple of years is that AI is becoming officially the biggest technological buzzword for the businesses. Like AI here, AI there. We witnessed that Google has declared themselves as AI-first company this year. We see giants like Microsoft, Facebook, Uber, you name it, investing insane amount of money into building their own research capabilities in-house to focus on AI. This is kind of a bell for all of us to realize that this might be one of the technologies not to miss out if we want to keep up with the progress. But in order to look at it into more detail, let's try to guess what is the most Googled up thing that is connected to the AI over the last year. It's what is AI? And it's kind of understandable because the technology is not only very new, but very complex. Nowadays you can literally call anything AI. It's Siri in your phone, it's self-driving cars, it's Terminators, or you name it. So a lot of companies are making use of that. They're branding themselves as AI companies, and so for a normal person to figure out what AI is about is nearly impossible. And moreover, if you're like me, you're used to the fact that AI is something that was out there in the science fiction before, and now you see some serious research people talking about that, and that's unrealistic and confusing as well. And so to try to sum up what AI is, it is essentially a theory and development of the computer systems that are able to perform the same tasks as humans do. to perform them on the same level or even better. That tasks include natural language processing, machine vision, sound recognition, all the things like that. The goal, however, for AI systems is not to be fixed on one particular task. It's not a software code as you know it, written and created to perform one particular task step by step with a couple of exceptions hardwired in. But the goal is actually to have it flexible, to have it achieve the goals while learning from the training data that you provide to it, so that this program is able to adjust to the challenges and changes in the environment. So if you look at here, the simple task of relocating from point A to point B can become a little bit more complicated than that. This is amazing, right? I mean, this is a demo, and most of the things that we as the general audience get to see that are connected to AI at the moment are demos, which were actually created to look as cool as this thing out there. But the goal is to have the software program adjust to the changing circumstances, react on the challenges, and know that if you fail stepping up from one stair, it's not a reason to stop the mission, and there must be a creative way to figure out how to do those things. Now, despite the fact that AI is a very recent buzzword, the history of AI is actually relatively long. Well, in particular, the moment when the birth of AI has happened, as it is considered, is 1950s. And the father of artificial intelligence is Alan Turing, an incredible man who came up with the suggestions that any computational process, any process possibly at all in the world, could be represented in a digital form. And that theory, brainstormed by a lot of other brilliant people, led up to the thought that it might be possible that we might create something that would resemble human brain and would be able to achieve reaching most of the tasks that our human brain is able to do. There were a couple of surprises on the way, namely the realization that we don't really know, and it's true up until now, how the human brain works. So just copying that wouldn't be as a simple thing, so there must be some different ways. But the fact is the fact. 1950s is the time when it all started. 1966 was the moment when the first chatbot, as we know it in the modern times, was created. Eliza was the first AI conversational tool, and it was a very simple text interface where you would type in a sentence, it would pick up some keywords, and basing on them reply to you either with some very generic thing or would try to ask you or clarify something based on those keywords. So just for the reason that it resembled a conversation with a therapist, something like, I like apples. Oh, why do you like apples? Oh, it's interesting that you like apples. Oh, apples are good. For that reason, it was called the therapist AI, and it was essentially the first big step in proving that something that seems to be acting and reacting in a way that human would be, that was a big thing. After that, this was a sign to many of the governments and companies to start investing into the AI heavily. Something called AI Spring has started because a lot of research capabilities were focused on that. And that continued up until 1980s with the boom of expert machines and expert systems. Expert system is a computer system, the goal of which is to solve complex tasks by breaking them down to the smaller tasks and using the basic rules of if-then in order to achieve certain outcome, in order to solve some problem. That was the great success of the AI research, only that at the same time, the guys have figured out that the hardware capabilities are not really enough at the moment to keep up with the speed of that research. Therefore, a so-called AI winter came, where the funding was pulled off, the research was frozen up until the early 2000s, when, thanks to the amount of data that we work with, thanks to the cloud storage and all the other advantages, the hardware has finally caught up. And that's why we are here witnessing amazing things like, AI beating every kind of human and every kind of sport or game that you can imagine, or virtual agents, which were just mentioned by Katja here. However, the trick is that all of what we know as AI is a so-called narrow AI. All of those AI programs are perfect in what they do, but their essential goal is to solve one particular problem. And if there is an AI which is pre-trained and created to recognize our faces on our Facebook pictures, then the chances that the same program would be able to recognize something else on, say, MRI scans immediately are pretty much zero. the algorithm will have to be restructured with the humans working on that. Then it would have to be retrained with the crazy amounts of data, which is also a big challenge these days. So like it's only us to humans that the task of recognizing something visually is simple, and just because we have those 2 pieces of hardware, we can work on it, you know, in any setting. For AI, it's not like that. So most of the programs which are created nowadays, most of the AIs are the so-called narrow AIs. And that's why it's becoming pretty pricey for the companies who want to embrace the technological challenge now, because you would like to invest your money into something that would be able to solve multiple problems, right? Or at least would have the potential. The realization of how would that work exactly, and the challenges with the storing the data, having the data in right format, and having the in-house capabilities for AI research, which is kind of a commodity these days, are very big. So what many of the people started thinking, and what our research team has started thinking, is that there must be some way to generalize those algorithms. You know, if an objective function of AI could be anything, then potentially an objective function of AI could be learning things. And at the moment when you create a computer system that is able to learn new things and to transfer the knowledge that it learned on one task in order to perform a different task, which would be similar but not the same, this kind of gradual learning in the same way as we kids do. You know, we have something pre-programmed in us, sort of our DNA, but then we firstly learn how to sit, then we know how to crawl, then we know how to walk, but then nobody can take it back from us. And it gets much easier for us to learn how to ride a bike or snowboard or sail or do whatever, because we already learned how to. And this is how we exactly imagine the general purpose AI. This would be a generalized algorithm. Possibly it would be just a few lines of the code that would solve everything in the universe. That's like an ideal vision, but it's not going to be like that for a very, very, very long time. For now, it's just the work on trying to restructure the algorithms with the function of learning. How it happened with us and why it happened in the Czech Republic is, as always, because there was one person who was really passionate about that, and he had enough drive and opportunities to make this happen. GoodAI Research was founded in 2014, that is 4 years ago, by a guy from Bratislava whose name is Marek Rosa, who has been successful in his game development business, and he was doing computer games focused on understanding the physics and the science. And then he figured that, you know, there is an opportunity, so why not to try it? The trick is that most of the companies working on narrow AI research, like according to the current Tractica researchers, I think it's over 99% of all the research AI players who are working on narrow AI, because that's something that you can prove easily, that you can monetize easily, and that's kind of what's making sense at the moment. But the long-term research is still very important, even though it's not that easy to prove to the investors or to prove to the grant holders. So the value of small and agile teams working on something like that is somewhere far in the future, but the moment it happens, it would be a game changer, right? So that's how our group started. We're based in Prague. We are around 25 people at the moment, coming from all over the world and with completely different backgrounds. Because the philosophy behind working on AI that we support actively is that exactly all the capabilities, like being curious, trying to learn new things and reapply knowledge from the different domains, is what matters the most. We have people coming from biological background. We have people coming from games background. Like our founder and CTO is essentially a game programmer himself. So only a combination of those different disciplines and interdisciplinary communication is something that we believe could help us achieve the general purpose AI. You might be wondering, and when I first heard about this thing, I was wondering myself, you know, this task, achieving something like that, is extremely ambitious, and we're just 25 people in Prague, which is like cool, but sounds a little bit unrealistic, I am guessing. We are strong believers in collaboration across different institutions as well. AI research in particular is a very tricky field because it could give potentially a huge competitive advantage to any of the company that achieves it. So the benefits of sharing the knowledge are rather low, while the incentive of keeping it to yourself before you reach it and become the king of the universe is kind of more obvious in that sense. So what we started with is establishing a couple of workshops and then an own research institute called the AI Roadmap Institute, which is aimed at bringing different teams that work on general AI research together to discuss their approaches without revealing much. Well, obviously up to them. But, up until the certain point in the technological progress, it always makes sense to collaborate until you achieve some big milestone, and then you can diverge to your own paths. And that's why we work closely with Facebook AI research, we work closely with DeepMind from Google on trying to brainstorm what we have achieved together. But what is even more important is that since there is no such thing as a clear profile of AI researcher, and there is a lot of people out there who are curious to help and would like to get somehow involved in that, then, well, why not to leverage that? That's what we said to ourselves, and that's why last year we have launched the General AI Challenge, which you see right there. It is a citizen science project. It's an open international competition with $5 million in prizes, which must sound incentivizing enough for the people, to try their forces in that. The goal of this whole project and the whole competition is to basically outsource the biggest research milestones and problems which are researchers in different companies working on at the moment. When we were running the first warm-up round, it was a technical one, and it was focused on gradual learning, the concept of transferring the knowledge across different domains. There was a study curriculum that was developed together with the Facebook AI research, and the participants were submitting the code, the architecture of their AI agents, which were supposed to be able to solve a bunch of tasks. Task curriculum. But after that, we were testing those agents on a completely different curriculum, which would be resembling the initial task, but it wouldn't be exactly the same, so that you would be able to actually say whether the AI has learned something or it was just hardwired and pre-programmed to do the test scenarios that we gave out. It was a warm-up round. We had no idea what we were doing, in a sense that it was a first big public competition of that scale rolled out in this sphere, and it was our first experience, and we were still a team of 20 people working on challenge actively. I guess it was like 3 or 4 people at the moment, but because of a broad network of connections and growing excitement from the public, the first round was actually a great success. And what flattered me the most and what made me happiest is that the winners of that competition, we had 4 winners that we awarded with the prizes, and one of them was a quantum physicist. Another guy was a software developer from Microsoft. Only one was actually working on AI research in Japan, but the last one was an ex-NASA scientist, 65 or something years old, who has decided that after 3 trips to the International Space Station, it's about the time that he does something useful for the next generations as well. And, tries to catch up what have the folks out here on the Earth have been working on. And he was able to create something absolutely amazing on the level with all the other people who devoted their life or a big portion of life to the AI research, which is a big sign that everybody could contribute, and everybody who dares to do that would be able to support the whole country, well, the whole globe's research effort in that way. Now we have started the second round. We have closed it already, actually. It was running for the last half a year, which was dedicated to AI safety and the challenges connected to that. Because as you can all guess, when we as humanity don't understand something fully, and that's what happens with AI, we tend to be afraid of that. And then if you look out to the press, it's just, dazzling around with the words like AI is going to destroy us all, it's Terminators, everything's going to be really, really bad. Far from all of those claims are true. The situation is, much more stable at the moment because it's just a small-scale research and testing in the sandbox environment, but it shows that it's really important to address questions like that. Because exactly as blockbusters fail to do, you have to anticipate the challenges before they come and start working on it. But one of the current, examples of how difficult it could be to anticipate the safety challenges that come with the AI development.
It got me thinking about my full-time employees and their ability to survive on $8 an hour in New York City. And foremost in all of our minds has been the loss and the grief felt by the people of Orlando. Most of us don't get our health care through the marketplace. We get it through our job or through Medicare or Medicare. And what you should know is that thanks to the Affordable Care Act, your coverage is better today than it was before. Women can get free checkups, and you can't get charged more just for being a woman. To give his employees come together to pass a common... There's a bill that would boost America in very, very hard times.
Some progress, at least within the small confines of the legal community. I think it's real important.
Here we go. President Barack Obama. When you giving a speech, make sure you use a lot of pauses.
I America's businesses have created 14.5 million new jobs over 75 straight months.
We're developing technology. Every technology can be used in some negative way, and so we all should work towards making sure that it's not going to happen. And even one of the interesting directions is that once you know how to create something, you know how to reverse engineer it. And so you can, and so one could create methods for identifying edited videos versus real videos.
I couldn't agree more on that, and one thing I want all of you to understand is the moment we work on the technology, we know how to fight it, we know how to identify it and work in it. And the second thing is that artificial intelligence is essentially a tool. This is something which we can use to augment our capabilities, because the essence of AI is fulfilling the tasks that humans can do. It's the same way as we use glasses to see better, we would be able to use narrow AI tools to do some sort of things better, which doesn't mean that we should not put enough attention to the safety research, and that's a big challenge these days, and that's where I personally believe most of the attention should be dragged in. And that's, again, a discipline where all of us could contribute, because all kinds of social sciences background, game theorist background, anything you can imagine could be used as a collaborative effort to address the risks and the pitfalls in the future. One of the aspects is the job automation, which scares a lot of people. And as I have been trying to tell you throughout all my talk, in the times that we live in, it's not anymore the times when we are trying to guess what will be automated or what will not be automated. We know almost for sure that most of the things will be automated, and for as long as we are preparing for that, for as long as we are getting ready for this digital transformation, the same way as people before us were getting prepared for the electricity, to become a part of our lives, for the same way as we were getting used to the cars instead of horses on the streets. This is something that we now know very much in advance, and we have control over it, and we have an opportunity to roll out with preparations before this actually happens.
Can we have one closing thought?
Sure. Just a small example of how AI could do a lot of different things that you wouldn't think of. A closing thought is that now is the moment when generalization of AI algorithms would be possible, because of all the different opportunities that we have now that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. In the long-term future, general-purpose AI would be something that could change the game completely, and that's what's making it so exciting to work on. And in order to address things like that, there is a lot of workshops and initiatives happening out there, with one of the biggest research conferences targeting the boundaries of machine learning and how to push them is going to be happening in Prague in August. And all of us are very welcome to attend. Czech Republic, thanks to the research capabilities, is becoming one of the AI research centers, and all of us should take the advantage of it. Thank you.
Daria Hvížďalová. Okay, we have time for 2 questions from you guys. Where is my guy with the fur little microphone? Here. Yeah. Okay, 2 questions. I wanted to ask you, since the media kind of raises the fear around AI, as you actually said, how can we, as more or less, interested in tech, but how can we spread it throughout, like, more general public, or maybe our parents, our grandmothers?
Well, I guess the first and the fundamental thing is the realization that all of us create a huge digital footprint, and we create the data which can be further on used for many different purposes. So being conscious around that, trying to figure out what could be the true news, the fake news, looking out for the proof for everything that you read online is a first step for us, and this is something that we're trying to spread through to our parents, that we're trying to teach to our kids. And I guess that's the step 1, and the step 2 is looking into the more holistic initiatives which try to outline the future scenarios and just take it step by step, looking what could be the problem and how could we address it.
Okay. There was Daria Hvížďalová. Give it up for her. Oh, yeah. Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I have a question. We have evidence that general AI can generate a new knowledge, a part of the narrow AI that's just machine learning, training, analytics.
That's a tricky question. I would be safer saying no, we do not have evidence at the moment, but it doesn't prevent us from trying to find a way for that to happen while being able to fully control how does that process actually happen. Thank you.
Daria Hvížďalová.